talk about first gen. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And I just can't get enough. My name is Shahir Dowd.
This is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film Tron Ares.
And
specifically the music video from Nine Inch Nails, Tron Ares.
Were you a Quake player?
Oh, yeah.
You remember the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack for Quake?
Yeah.
That was pretty. That was kind of the start of this whole thing. Was Nine Inch Nails doing that soundtrack? I remember when Quake came out, I liked Nine Inch Nails, but I hadn't really listened to the album. I hadn't quite gotten that far. But when I got into college, for some reason I saw, I'd come from New Zealand to America and discovered the Columbia Record Music Club.
Sure.
And I was like, whoa, you can get 3 CDs for $1? Just sign me up. And I picked up Nine Inch Nails.
Remember which album?
The Downward Spiral.
Oh, yeah.
And Radiohead's OK Computer. And I think I got Air Moon Safari as well.
Okay.
And this was the time when we did have MP3s, but we were like, you would listen to a whole CD over and over and over again because it would enter into your rotation. I was running a lot as well, so I would run with a CD.
With a Discman.
I had, oh boy, listeners, we are so old. I'm going to tell you some stories right now.
Wow.
It's funny because I actually just went to kind of a college reunion. It was a funeral, but it was kind of ended up being a college reunion kind of thing. And I used to run through UC Irvine with a shock-resistant Sony Discman.
And it worked.
I went through a bunch of them and then finally landed on this particular one that came with this pouch, and I would put a CD in the pouch, and within the CD case, I would put 2 or 3 replacements, and I would go on these long, hour-long or 2-hour-long runs through the campus. Yeah, dude, those were the bad old days, of music listening for Shahir.
I had a Discman that was anti-shock, and it worked somewhat okay.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing, when I first adopted MP3 players early, it was before the iPod.
The Zune?
No, it was before the Zune. It was literally an MP3 player that was the shape and footprint of a Discman.
Okay.
I don't know who made it. I don't remember, but it had you could basically fit 10 CDs on.
Yeah, okay.
And you had to download your CDs through your PC.
And then connect them up there.
And I just loved it because it looked like a Discman, but I could move and run with it and do whatever, and it would never skip. And it was always that was the thing where I was like, nothing's moving in this.
I remember the reason the Discman I had worked so well was that it had some sort of 40-second lag on it, or 40-second resistance.
It would buffer it.
It would buffer for 40 seconds, and then it did play MP3s as well, so you could burn in a CD with MP3s.
Oh man,
on.
the Discmans who could play it. When you have 600 songs.
Yeah. Oh, for those long runs, trust me.
Amazing. Well, listen, I'm sure, dear Topam fam, you came here for us to wax poetic about old technology.
Yeah.
Which I guess is pertinent for this franchise and where it comes from and where it's been and where it's going.
Yeah.
Shahir, I guess the question that I have for you, because I don't think we didn't do Tron Legacy on this.
No,
that was before
our time.
So what is your history with the Tron verse in general?
So I definitely saw the original 1982 Tron, not in theaters. I was only a few years old at that point, but I definitely saw it on VHS at some point.
Yeah.
It made an impression so much as I remember that was that movie, and I remember it had these cool visual effects. I remember them being kind of somewhat rudimentary. But I thought it was cool, but it didn't lag it didn't linger in the sort of public lexicon in the sort of way that Star Wars did, or even we both have a mutual bond over Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
That's a movie that kind of lingered in the memory. I didn't actually remember the story of it. So in 2014, 12, I want to say, was when Tron Legacy came out, the Joseph Kosinski film, and I remember looking at that, and this was sort of a period of rebooting. Star Wars.
This was a reboot, cool.
Yeah, and Star Wars episode The Force Awakens came out a few years after this.
Well, it's so funny. Sorry to cut.
Go for it.
But it's so funny because you can kind of see the proto Disney, because Disney had Tron, the rights to Tron. That's why they made Tron Legacy. They wanted a sci-fi franchise.
Yeah,
they were hunting for it. They were hungry for it. And they did the reboot cool thing, which I think Tron Legacy is a fine movie. It didn't I don't think it lit the world on fire in general. It was, I enjoyed it when I watched it. The Daft Punk soundtrack is great.
Yeah.
And cool. Great. Way more engaging than the original Tron. but you could sort of see the rebootquel pattern that Disney, even when that sort of was a commercial flop, you can see when they're like, fine, like they put on the Thanos glove and they're like, I'll do it myself. And they bought basically, I guess they'll do the opposite. They bought Star Wars. And then they did literally almost beat for beat story-wise, a similar thing with a rebootquel with I think they took the lessons they learned on Tron Legacy and used it on The Force Awakens.
I wonder if Matt Singer coined, I think I'm aware that Matt Singer was the person who coined the phrase legacy quill.
Yeah.
And I think he might have coined it off of Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Look, I had recently moved to New York when Tron Legacy came out. I saw it in IMAX. I love Daft Punk, so I thought the soundtrack was killer. Tron Legacy gets a lot of play in my house because it's a really easy one for us to play. My son loves it. It's a good one actually to test your speaker systems and your visual systems as well. I will go out on a limb and say I've never thought the Tron Legacy was a particularly great movie.
I don't think the story sticks.
No.
But again, here's the other thing. I don't think Tron as a series, the story has ever sticked. I think Tron has really interesting sci-fi concepts and always a distinct visual style. And that is why it has stayed. That's why it has limped along every 20 years with something going on.
And I think the visual hook is what has kept it alive. I think, again, Kaczynski's vision for it. Now, Kaczynski was a art director, I believe, or a technical designer before or maybe even an architect at some point. Before he took on the Tron Legacy, which was his directing debut. Kaczynski obviously went on to do Top Gun Maverick, Oblivion, and there was another thing. No, Top Gun. Oh, F1. Yeah, F1 was his most recent thing as well. So obviously, really structurally sound filmmaker in terms of technical ability. Really well designed, precise films. And Legacy had all of that in spades. Legacy was really beautiful. It took the idea of what Tron was and brought it into a 2010s kind of aesthetic. Really magnificently rendered in a way that was quite profoundly beautiful. And it took a few swings at the sort of Flynn story. And, it kind of, I think its visual ambitions were realized much stronger than its philosophical ambitions, which lagged behind. It's a clumsy movie to watch. It does suffer from being like a clunky performance movie as well. The
second they leave that bar, it gets real weird.
Yeah. It just kind of plays funky.
But it's half Tron and half Matrix. Yeah. And by that I mean the programs in the Matrix, like they go to dinner and they do the things. There's like the bar that the programs, like it's all,
It doesn't quite work, but it's got killer sequences in it, and it's fun to rewatch those sequences, particularly with the soundtrack. So I think I felt like, there's something here that could be worked on and something that could be developed over time if someone really, really invested in it. And obviously, a twinkly-eyed young Jared Leto was like, give me the mantle, I will take this up, and has been working on this film for the better part of 10 years.
From what I understand, the contracts were signed in 2017.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of interesting development of that project. I think I've talked about this on the podcast. I met with him in 2018.
I believe you did.
Yeah.
So right after he signed the deal for Tron Air.
Right. And it was because I met with him because of my music video Automatica with the robots in it, which there are some kind of allusions to some sort of robotics things in this film. And Joachim Ronan sort of talked about this idea that the film was filmed by robots. So he does some sort of interesting things there. The meeting was very brief, and I don't think there was anything Tron related, but I got the sense that he was asking kind of like what I was interested in. So it's been a interesting long run development project, and if anything, Legacy has demonstrated that there is potential here. Whether Ares lives up to that potential is a conversation. Now, I know the interesting thing is when I suggested we do Ares, you were not a fan of this idea.
I am not particularly a large fan of Jared Leto.
Yeah.
I am not like after Legacy. After seeing just sort of like overall, like with Jared Leto involved, and then also with sort of like, I don't want to poo-poo on Roning's sort of career at all. He's very successful, but he's kind of essentially at this point a bit of the Disney sort of like jobber. Like, do you need something done competently, but something that you won't terribly remember? Like, then you go to him. I
haven't seen Kon-Tiki, but I've heard that is excellent.
Is it?
Yeah,
that's before he kind of, because like I think his first Disney thing was Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, and he's also done Maleficent.
Yeah.
And again, literally nothing wrong with any of those films, but I think with my sort of distaste for Jared Leto, and then feeling like this was really going to be like a real like middle of the road film. Although I will say, the second I heard that Greta Lee was involved with it, I was like, oh, well, okay.
Maybe.
Like, I didn't, this is how, I stay pretty much on the pulse of a lot of like, especially big blockbusters things and trailers and whatnot. And I knew this was coming, and all I knew was like, oh, Nine Inch Nails doing a soundtrack. Like, I never watched a trailer. I never did anything.
Yeah.
And I just didn't care. Because I was like, oh, it's Red Tron now, and it has to do with the God of War, and Jared Leto's in it. I was like, whatever. And then when I found out Greta Lee was in it, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I was not particularly excited about it. I did also see this film in IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can get kind of right into it.
Well, tell us what it's about.
Well, the Internet Movie Database says that Tron Ares is a highly sophisticated program. Ares is sent from the digital world into the real world on a dangerous mission. Correct. Yeah. So, all right. We just talked about Masters of the Universe.
Yep.
And that is a film that does the trope that I normally don't like, of like taking a fantastical world and like, yeah, but what if we put it in New York or whatever, like put it in the real world. Smurfs just did it with another reboot. Like it's when you don't trust the source material or don't want to spend the money to make the entire thing in the other world that is the universe that this thing takes place in, that you just sort of like, but what if they're in Chicago? That's what it always sort of feels like. Very rarely is it a, like, in my eyes, a non-budgetary issue, like to like make the fantastical world show up on Earth.
In this particular case, I think you can make an argument that wasn't the driving factor, given the fact that they've done an entire movie in the Tron universe.
Like I agree with that after having seen it, but it still gave that vibe to me when I was like, oh, and now there's light cycles on the street.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Like I think the thing that turned me off the most about this movie was now it's the computer generated shit in the real world.
Yeah.
I go to Tron for the aesthetics, and I think that when you mix it with essentially real world cityscapes, I found them less fantastical.
Didn't love Vancouver?
No, yeah. And you know what's interesting? I did like a lot of the tricks that the machines in the movie do. Like, one thing that the moment that actually got me smiling was when the light cycles were going in the street in Act 2 or whatever. It was causing havoc with like the regular traffic patterns. Something I really liked was when the bike turned really hard, the hard vertical line did the tilt as well. So it almost became a ramp. And then instead of something hitting it and exploding, it ramped off it. And I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But like, I love the idea. I think the thing that I love the most about Tron is that it's the idea that there is a world inside a microprocessor.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I really just find that fascinating and cool.
Yeah.
And the second you take that world out and put it into our world, I'm like, well, now it's just our world, but like with like a cool tank.
Yeah.
I'm like, then like the specialty of it kind of goes away. Now we'll get into minor spoilers here real quick. I did enjoy the idea of the 29-minute limit. Yep. Like, I thought that was an interesting move.
Big fan of the search for the permanence code.
It's just one step away from unobtainium.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked that as a thing, because there's an instant timer on everything, and it kind of makes everything feel more rushed. I like, in a good way.
It's got tension. There's a natural tension to it.
as someone who 3D prints stuff, it's funny because when they 3D printed out of like light or whatever, when they 3D printed stuff, I don't have a problem with like getting zapped into a computer or out of it. Like that happens in Tron all the time. That's fine. What I found hilarious and what broke my immersion ever so slightly was when it's printed, they do that cool thing where there's a scaffolding around it and it breaks out of the scaffolding.
Yeah.
When you're printing, the reason scaffolding exists in 3D prints like that, it's when you're doing resin printing. It's when a plate is upside down, and that's why those bars are there.
So it doesn't fall apart.
You don't need that. When you're upright. So I was like,
so it would have been hilarious if like the resin broke apart and Jared Leto fell out.
Was upside down,
and he fell out of it like
like. And again,
hi guys.
And here's the other thing I'll say. I think the visual design in this movie is really, really cool.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if it was how it was cut together, or I was really trying to like, as I was watching, I'm watching this, the biggest, best screen possible. I'm watching it at Lincoln Square. I every action scene, I didn't give a shit about.
Right.
Like nothing. I'm seeing it and like it's shot and made to look like everything's weighty and important and whatever. And maybe it comes down to not caring about the characters. I have no idea. But I just was like, okay, like every hand-to-hand fight, I was like, this is the most boring fight I've ever seen.
Right.
And they have light sticks that are doing the things that the light cycles are. And I was like, man, that would be cool if it was cool. And I couldn't figure out like why it wasn't cool. Cause like conceptually, my brain's like, that's cool. But watching it, I had no emotional resonance with anything that was going on.
I mean, I think that's highly the main criticism of the film is that it is an empty vessel purely for visuals. And I think that's a fair criticism. And it's interesting for me this week. I'm in a book club and we read The Woman in Cabin 10. And then I watched the movie The Woman in Cabin 10.
Sure.
And then I watched Tron Ares right afterwards. And I did a simultaneous thing, which is I watched Terminator 2, which is the sort of allusion to Tron Ares. And I watched Gone Girl, which is like a way more complicated thriller. And it was an interesting exercise because I was like, well, why does The Woman in Cabin 10 and Tron Ares not kind of work? And it was like, oh, this is really a testament to like why James Cameron and David Fincher are James Cameron and David Fincher, which is that in Terminator 2, all of these ideas are given breathing room and space to exist. And, you know, we get to see characters working things out in real time and they're working them out before the audience works them out. So like the audience is kind of learning these things along the way. Whereas
the characters in those movies come up with the ideas, where in a movie like this, the ideas are there. So you need characters to say them.
Yeah.
And it does not effective.
No, it's not effective at all. And like, you know, there's a sort of, I think the sort of central arc of this movie should be based around Ares, the Jared Leto character's yearning for life.
Why that character also doesn't look like Dylan is insane. Because Dylan is the company, you know what I mean? Like, like
sure. Yeah, there was a point where I was like, why does he look like that? Yeah. You know, like I was like, what? Why? What? Is there a choice? But then, but the way I hand waved it away, I was like, the Terminator looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And you know, that plot line does not work at all in this film. The sort of the yearning for the permanence code, the moment when the permanence code is achieved, and then the sort of the moment where Leto's Ares becomes like AI Jesus at some point, you know, the savior of humanity, and then also like learns to bleed at, you know, some later point in the film. I think it just, the problem is that there's no breathing room in the writing for that to actually have any weight if it wasn't at all in any way original. Yeah. Like it feels reductive and it plays reductive.
I would say this, core tenet of this failing is this. They try to get through the entire, I'll even say they get through the entire narrative arc of the Terminator and Terminator 2 in a 90-second sequence where Jared Leto and Greta Lee are in a car.
Yeah.
But it is breezed through so fast. You're like, this is like script writing 101, but like how you do things too fast and then it just moves on and you're like, what?
And there's no stakes to it because if you remember the scene in Terminator 2, the stakes to it is our nuclear holocaust is about to happen. And this conversation is about the steps that took place to get to that nuclear holocaust. So the conversation really matters.
And you could argue that in the raw data of what this movie is about, technically what's going to happen could be akin to a nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
But the way the movie presents its stakes is so weak and just sort of milquetoast that you do not get that at every moment.
I haven't said what I thought about the film yet, but I want to tell you a story, which is that I was in LA recently and I was meeting with some people. I met with someone who had worked with James Cameron. And I've told this story a couple of times, but I was like, I gave him my theory of why James Cameron is a genius. And the theory of why Terminator 2 is a masterpiece in writing is there's a sequence in the middle of the movie where, and you know, you're very familiar with the film, but where John Connor and the Terminator, the T-800, go to rescue Sarah Connor from a mental institution that she has been incapacitated in. And there's an incredibly thrilling chase sequence there where you kind of learn more about the T-1000 and what it can do. And, you know, like the Terminator, the T-800 basically has to like reverse roles that it did in the first film with Sarah Connor. So there's so much going on in and around all of that. And it's all genius. It's beautiful. The visual effects are stunning. You know, your jaw is on the floor the whole time, because there's a new discovery around every corner of how this film actually works. And then the thing that I was talking about to a couple of people was the reason why that sequence is genius is what happens immediately after it. So the T-1000 chases them outside of the hospital. They manage to get away in a police car. For the first time in the movie, Sarah Connor and John Connor are together. Mm-hmm. And John Connor, has made this big effort to rescue his mother. And this is the genius moment. Is Sarah Connor reaches over to hug John Connor, and he's ready for this embrace. This is the thing that he's really wanted. His character arc is being like he's lost his mother and he's about to get his mother back. That's why he's told the T-800 to do this, despite the fact that he's like, this is the worst thing you could do.
Yep.
And the Sarah Connor comes in for a hug, and then she doesn't actually go in for the hug. What she does is she starts patting him down to see if he's got bullet holes in him, and then berates him for like saying, you can't be that stupid. How, like
you're too important.
You're too important. You shouldn't have come back. And you can see the turn in that little sequence there is that everything he's wanted as a character has been destroyed right in front of him. And he turns around and he's disappointed. And not just disappointed, crestfallen, heartbroken, crushed, and that's like the weight of the movie is in that sequence. And that's why, like, with all the special effects and everything going around, he still remembers that is what is important in the scene. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's a genius, right? That's why James Cameron is a genius writer. And I'm saying all of that to say that this film carries none of that, carries none of that weight. The closest I got to something like that was Jodie Turner-Smith's character of Athena, mm-hmm. who has this sort of like conflicting idea of we must do our duty as programs. But there's a moment where she's in, I think, the Flynn building, and raindrops start falling on her. And she recalls a thing that Ares had told her about what the rain is just before she disintegrates. And there's this like internal conflict going on in that character about like what should they be doing in the sequence, or what their entire programming is. And like basically Ares is suggesting there's more to us than our programming. And she is like, no, we must, we are built for this purpose and therefore we must do it. So I kind of found that there's a little hint there. But the movie has no weight to it whatsoever in terms of like delivering on any of that kind of meaningful things. And I honestly, I watched and I felt like I didn't think that they really wanted to. I'm also a person who does not hold a lot of water for the idea that Tron Legacy is some holy, sacred text or anything like that, or that Tron is a sacred text. I found that both those movies are like visually cool, sometimes interesting, but never quite getting there. So my expectations for this movie are very low. And so when the movie basically doesn't give any of that any water, but kind of just does the basic things it needs to in order to get the movie moving.
Yeah.
And it delivers for me 3 pretty great set pieces. And I was like, 3 pretty great set pieces that happen to be scored by Nine Inch Nails, a band I kind of love. And I saw it on a big screen. And I was like, I don't think this is a great movie. I don't think this is a movie that anyone, like I'm going to be screaming from the rooftops for anyone to go see. But I kind of thought about it in relation to Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, movies that I just kind of felt like did the things right that it needed to do in order to deliver what it's trying to deliver. And for me, the visual aesthetic of light cycles, going through, in a physical space, felt good. The chase sequences were actually like not entirely just repetitive. They were kind of like interesting and dynamic. There was this factor of the 29 minutes within it. There was one inside the digital realm where they had sort of like a liquid river of digital information.
Yeah, I just wanted to be on a jet ski.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't understand why we're here, but the sequence kind of is cool in terms of looking cool. So I was kind of like, my expectations were this was going to be terrible, and I've seen terrible movies, and I was like, I'm kind of just here, and I'm not hating my time here, and I'm kind of okay with where we are. Again, I would not recommend this as like, you got to go see this or anything like that. But in terms of like, it delivered me light cycles. The franchise expectations are not that high, and it's got 9 Inch Nails in it, and it looks cool. I was kind of like, it's kind of just doing the bare minimum for me to be here.
So I agree.
Yeah.
But what I'll say is what I've been telling a couple people that I've talked to this week. It is the very definition of a 5 out of 10 movie.
Yeah.
It is one of the movies of all time. It literally, like, if weighing everything against itself,
it's
pros and cons.
Yeah.
It is dead even.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the worst damning thing I can say about a movie. Like if it's bad, like if it's insultingly bad, at least there's like things to really go through or like work through. Like, look, yeah, could we tear apart the story? Sure, but it's no more or less ridiculous than other movies that I have very much enjoyed.
Yeah.
But there's some level of, and this, I don't know if this might just be me knowing too much about the process of it getting made, but there's something of like this was a deal that was signed long ago, and now we just got to spend the money and do it.
Yeah.
It felt like an obligation. Again, not in a way that makes it worse than a 5 of 10.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But every time there's a good thing, there's a bad thing. Greta Lee, Jared Leto, the visual aesthetic that you're talking about, and how cool it would be to see these things do those things, and then the way that that is cut together and shown to me, it's like nothing felt
well. I would just sort of counter that with the 9 Inch Nail soundtrack does so much lifting.
The 9 Inch Nails soundtrack does a ton of lifting, then I'll say milquetoast narrative about like good company AI, bad company AI, counterbalanced with 9 Inch Nails kicks ass.
Yeah,
the second the movie started and we went through like the news organizations talking through like all the shit that went on, I was like, oh, we're doing this, cool.
Which is also how they start Tron Legacy.
Also, side note, Tron's not in this movie.
No, I mean, Tron has been like, it's just kind of the name at this point.
But it's a character. It's a character in both other movies.
Well, here's what I would say. If the movie was called Ares, the brand recognition for them to do it just wouldn't work.
If there's a movie where the title is a main character, and then all of a sudden that main character is nowhere in that movie, it feels weird. Again, I'm not saying that Tron, one of the characters of all time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not an important character to me. I don't care. But like, I was like, oh, they're going to mention Tron, right? No? Cool, man. Like,
I mean, Flynn comes back. He's
not called Flynn.
Isn't he not called Flynn in this?
No, he is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the movie's not called
Flynn Ares.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, again, I want to preface this. I don't want to be too harsh. I agree with you. It's fine. Go see it. It's all right. I couldn't. A movie has to fight tooth and nail for me to not care about Greta Lee. And this movie fought so hard for me to not care about Greta Lee.
I think the stuff around the permanence code is really clunky, especially like how it's found and how they get it. And this idea of growing an orange tree with the permanence code. Like, I just had more questions than they were answering. Like, the moment where they like squeezed that orange into a glass of champagne, I was like, well, I would not be drinking that. I'm sorry.
You just have to understand: bad company tank, good company tree. You see?
Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to Arturo Castro, who's a friend of a friend, friend of this show. At least Brando's friends with Arturo, and I didn't even realize it was him.
Really?
In this movie, I didn't
Okay.
For whatever reason, it didn't clock, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
That was really nice. I think Evan Peters does a good job.
I think he's like
Julian Dillinger.
Yeah, he's a mustache twirling guy. There's a little bit of a post-credit scene which ties back to the original. He plays a character named Sark, I think is from the original. Like he's wearing that kind of armor.
Yes.
So that kind of comes up as well.
And then of course Gillian Anderson. Surprised to see her here.
Yeah, doing some like matriarchal like infighting. Sure, for reasons unknown, but she's there.
Because you need a stake in this movie. And why not? And spoiler alert for Tron Ares, why not kill off the well, I was gonna say the most talented actor in this. I don't know if that's entirely true. An elder statesman of acting.
I really think Jodie Turner-Smith walks away with the movie. I think she wins the movie.
She is by far, I think, the most effective. I would then go to Evan Peters, then maybe Greta Lee.
The thing with Greta Lee and Jared Leto in this is like they're there, they're fine. Neither of them are really adding much to this. They're not like bringing anything interesting to this, which is what I got out of Jodie Turner-Smith, which is like, oh, there's something behind this performance that I can kind of like find my way through. So it feels particularly flat.
You know what I'll say? A scene I particularly liked is when they're in Lynn's like old office, and Athena is going after Eve.
Yeah.
And Eve is running away, and she's crawling through, even though it's silly, and she's crawling underneath the pinball machines, and Athena's just flipping them.
Yeah.
And then there's one at the end. This is the only time anything in this movie ever felt like it had weight to me.
Yeah.
There's one where she's flipping them, and then she picks one up and throws it at Eve, and it crashes in front of her. And there's a shot from overhead where the thing crashes and falls, and it almost looks like it hits the stunt woman. Like it looks so. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And that's just like a pin. Like it's just. It felt like there was weight to it, and then she's like backs up against it right before she gets the 29 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that was the only moment where I felt any sort of weight to any of the activity that was going on, because everything else felt
fine,
but also like not there.
Yeah, I actually thought the visual effects work, the design work. So I'm really divorcing.
Sure.
I've talked extensively about how like the best visual effects are driven by story. So the visual effect in many ways, like, I've said this before, like one of the most important parts about the reveal of the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park is done by Sam Neill lifting his glasses off and shaking as he does it, almost breaking his glasses as he sees what he sees, because that gives you enough information to process what it is that he's witnessing, and any compositing failures that we see later on can be entirely forgiven by that reaction shot. And I, generally speaking, I thought the actual visual effects work of this movie was was really top notch and worked very, very well. Did it have any weight to it in terms of story wise? I don't know. But here's the thing that I think my appreciation for Tron has kind of come from in recent years. The Daft Punk soundtrack has become like a workout mix for me. So I love listening to it when I need to like get myself pumped up. I like watching, like, there's 2 or 3 scenes from Legacy, like a light cycle battle, which has a Daft Punk track on it that I think is just ace. Mm-hmm. And a flying light cycle thing that I think is really, really cool from Legacy. So in that regards, that's where the film kind of like lands for me. It works in terms of like delivering those kinds of spectacles that I can just like take it out. Like it's the same for me. It's sort of in the same way that I watch the Matrix, the second Matrix, not Revolutions, but
not Resurrection, Reloaded.
Reloaded. Like there's sequences in Reloaded where I just go, I just want to watch that sequence in isolation. The
highway sequence,
the highway chase sequence, and I just want to watch that in isolation to kind of like enjoy what that is doing. I don't think the story at all in that sequence works, in any way. So I think the visual effects are actually really well executed and well delivered. Like nothing felt problematic or in that regards for me. It's really just the story, and again, I'm just coming from it of a place of like, I just don't hold the Tron universe in such high esteem that the failures of this story negate what I think I wanted out of this.
I remember you weren't on the Jurassic World Rebirth podcast.
Yeah.
But the reason that Jamie and I were so infuriated with that film is because the visual effects were spectacular. The actors in it are good actors. It is a pedigree of a franchise that at least a half of the movies are, I think, quite excellent. I think 2 and 3 actually are quite good. The first one, there's no going through. There's no going
three. I would take umbrage on 3. But
I would
Joe
posit,
Johnson.
I would posit revisit 3.
I have revisited 3.
It is short enough where it doesn't overstay its welcome. It does a couple scenes from the book that I really like, and it's fine. But my point is, Jurassic World Rebirth has everything going for it, and the thing that the thing that makes it bad is literally the writing. Mm-hmm. And when you're spending that much money on it, and I understand there's schedules, and you have to hit summer and to do whatever and blah, blah, blah. And I know why they don't do what I'm going to say, because they don't need to, because they can print a fucking millions of dollars and they don't have to. But you could, for not that much money, early in the process, spend 2 more weeks with writers. Like you could, there are the pieces there with a skilled enough team to turn what that movie, with all of the resources that movie had, to turn into something truly legendary that like actually lasts. And they just, and for whatever reason, the team behind it said that wasn't important. Whereas, I'm sorry, I'm getting the tangent. I don't think that's what's happening with Tron Ares.
Yeah. So
I think Tron Ares, I don't think there is a pedigree here to like hit hard like that.
This is my point. I think this is one of the point I was going to use as the analogy of Jurassic Park here, is that the first Jurassic Park movie is timeless.
Yeah.
And you could still watch it today because the writing in it is phenomenal. And the sequence, the David Kipp script is incredible. And
everything works.
What that story is trying to do in both as an analogy and as a thrill per minute kind of film is exquisite.
All cylinders.
Tron doesn't have that. Like there is nothing in Tron or Tron Legacy that suggests that this will do that. So it requires someone to come in with a passion for the material that is beyond, I can play in this world. You know what I mean? And even Star Wars has that, Star Wars has that kind of like, these are timeless movies kind of thing. So the thing I was going to say is, like, there was an article in Deadline that came out this week, which is that Tron is projected to lose something like $132 million this year, which is also in the same ballpark as what One Battle After Another is projected to lose as well. And we talked about, when we had that discussion on One Battle After Another, that loss on One Battle After Another kind of, although probably, certainly painful for a studio, there are other strategic alliances that they're trying to forge there, particularly their relationship with writer-directors and the relationship to like winning Academy Awards and like films.
There's other avenues that movie can take throughout its the half-life of its life cycle.
It'll have a long tail.
Yeah.
And in the Tron world, here's the thing that has come for me, which is that, like the rewatchability has come from like, I want to just see this visual again kind of thing. And the second one is that it is a Disney property, and one of the most popular rides at Disney World is the Tron Legacy ride. And it's like, my son has been to Disneyland and he only wants to go back for the Tron ride. The Tron ride looks cool. And I think with this, it's the sort of same proposition for Disney, which is that, the movie's probably not going to have much of a, much legs.
They can reskin the ride.
They can reskin the ride to red. They can introduce the 9 Inch Nail soundtrack into the ride, and it plays. And, we've seen from Disney as well that like their tolerance for making movies that don't have a cultural impact, even in the case where they have made a cultural impact before. I'm thinking of all the live action adaptations of all their animated features. Like there was a Little Mermaid movie that came out recently. There was a Lion King movie that came out recently. There was a live action Aladdin. Those movies made $1 billion
but each. Also didn't move a conversation.
We're never going to talk about those movies ever again, other than the fact that we're going to talk about them in that context. And I think for Disney, I would argue that, like the reason why those conversations that we're having about like, why isn't more if it's been into these stories, is that is the calculation here, which is that
they don't have to.
They don't have to. And
but you should. This is what it gets me.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
I think it bugs me because they should want to, like, because it's proven truly that you can have both. If you're gonna spend this money, and you're gonna want like, and I understand there's a bit of a risk when you start getting out of a mold or something like that, but you're already losing money on all these things anyway. Like, just like get people that are like apps and let them actually work and control and do things. Like, get people that are like passionate about not just like the universe and not just whatever, but like have a fucking story to tell. Like, and are passionate about that and really want to like dig that want it. Wouldn't it be amazing if there was a Tron movie that had the emotional depth of Terminator 2? Like, I mean,
wouldn't it be amazing if most movies had the emotional depth of Terminator 2? I guess that's kind
of my, and I know that it's like, it's,
no, and I'm not, here's the thing. I'm not disagreeing with you. And I'm not, I'm also, I want to make sure I'm not defending the movie as like,
I don't think you are.
As passable. What I'm saying is,
no, I think it's entirely passable. That's it's a 5 out of 10. You cannot get more even down the line.
The other point here is like, I think I watched Madam Web earlier this year as well, on a lark, because it was on Netflix, and I was like, oh wow, this has got some problems to it. You know,
but
like
isn't that here's the, okay?
No, I do not land on the same page with you where you're like, isn't the problems make it more interesting? I'm like, no,
but okay. Let's see if I can find at least a common ground there. Just one quick thing.
Yeah.
If the watching experience of Madam Web doesn't do that for you at all, it's totally fine because it is a bad film.
Yeah.
But isn't the ability to talk about it in that way?
For us, sure. My point being,
but colloquially, to friends who are into comic book movies or anything, like it gives you something to talk about.
But that is not intentional on the part of the filmmakers.
No, but it gives you something to talk about. This movie, other than the things we've done, and I want to point out, we're only at 40 minutes now.
Yeah.
We are running out of things to talk about with Tron Ares.
Yeah.
Well, whereas we could fill easily 2 hours on Madam Web.
I guess from our point of view, that is possibly.
I would argue a lot of the Topam fam would also probably fall into that.
Yeah. And I think what I want to get into here is like,
you love Madam Web.
I do. I love Madam Web. It really worked for me. No, I think what I'm trying to say here is there's a level of competency on display in Tron Ares that makes you go, okay, well, this is not a case of it being bad. It's just not good.
They know how to make a movie.
Yeah.
They did a 3-act structure with a story that makes sense in the world that they set out to create.
And that's
is it interesting enough to carry you? Kind of.
I like, let's talk about the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack for a little bit. Yeah. So there's a little fun detail here, which is obviously the Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are Oscar winners, have been scoring movies for a while. I think maybe going back to The Social Network was their first endeavor.
I believe so, yes.
Other than Quake.
Yes.
Yeah. And they worked for Disney when they did Soul. As I was walking here, I threw on the Challengers soundtrack to kind of like.
Challengers soundtrack? I
fucking love the Challengers.
No, why didn't you throw on the Tron Ares soundtrack?
Because I wanted to hear Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross do like a fucking great soundtrack.
That's what this is.
Here's the funny thing is that I did throw on the Tron Ares soundtrack and I was like, none of this is really landing for me outside of the movie.
Oh, really? I've been listening to it.
Yeah. I like. There's one track which is the Something to Believe, as alive as you need me to be, and I was like, it's fine. I love Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. None of them. It plays well in the movie, and then there's a problem with it in the movie itself as well, which is that it is wall to wall in the movie. Like it is like I think I wrote in my Letterboxd review this is a house built entirely out of Nine Inch Nails, and there's the thing about like the Daft Punk soundtrack, for example. Is that
there's different feelings to it?
Yeah, there's also lulls in it to allow you to breathe so that when a percussive moment happens, it really comes at you. And one of my favorite things about Nine Inch Nails, a conversation that I've actually had with my son quite a lot, and actually people that are interested in music, is in the Downward Spiral, Perfect Drug is in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Perfect
Drug's not on Downward Spiral.
Is it not?
Nope.
Are you sure?
Yep. I'll look it up.
Okay.
I don't know what album it's on, but it's not Downward Spiral.
Okay. All right. At any rate, you might be right about that, but the thing about Perfect Drug is that it has one of the greatest drum solos of all time in it, and the thing that I've often wrestled with is that the drum solo in Perfect Drug lasts all of 20 seconds, maybe 25, 30 seconds, something like that, and it's epic.
It's actually, there is no album title with it. It only appeared on the album for Lost Highway.
But they did release. So, and this is what
there's a single.
There's a single, and I owned that single, and that single had 5 remixes.
Oh yeah,
and the remixes did something interesting, which was that 1 or 2 of the remixes takes the drum solo and makes it the entire track.
Yeah,
and it lasts for like 2-3 minutes, and it's like I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. But at the same time, I'm like, but what makes the original genius is that it comes in so unexpectedly and then leaves so abruptly and leaves you wanting more. And the reason I bring that up is that there is a point at which I was like, there's too much Nine Inch Nails in this movie. I love Nine Inch Nails. I think what it's doing is really great here in terms of like making, like, this is giving an aesthetic for me that I actually enjoy far more than any Marvel movie, than any, like, almost any visual effects driven movie. This is my aesthetic. I actually really, really like this. And Nine Inch Nails and, like, whatever, it all plays for me. But there's a moment where I was like, there is just too much dang Nine Inch Nails in this movie.
I didn't have that.
In so much as there are not enough lulls so that when the moments happen, you really are like living in the moment. You know what I mean?
No, I can see that.
Yeah.
I have listened. It's funny. I will say this. I've listened to the album, the soundtrack maybe 2 or 3 times all the way through.
Yeah.
But like it does all have a bit of a samey quality to it because, and I couldn't identify a track other than the first one, the one that like they actually has lyrics to it.
Is it Infiltrator was the one that I think was
Infiltrator's good.
Yeah. But there's a lot of like ambient kind of stuff in the middle of this.
Which is fine, especially for writing. I've been working on my Abolish Everything set and just been like listening to it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And the Downward Spiral has a lot of ambience in it, but the ambience kind of like feels like it's building to something. And this one is kind of not that. And then, the way that the movie actually plays in terms of the chase sequence. Once Ares comes to the real world and is, there's basically a sort of tit for tat trying to get the permanence code. The movie kind of feels just relentless at that point and never kind of like lulls and picks up and slows down and kind of like, does that thing of pacing you out a little bit. And it sort of brings me to that point about the conversation in the car, which is that is a moment where the movie should slow down, but the tension should rise because the inevitability of what this conversation means should affect like how we go into the third act.
But it all feels like the same speed.
Yeah. It all feels exactly like the same speed. And then even his conversation about Depeche Mode, which kind of like...
It felt forced as fuck.
On paper, it's right.
Yeah, on paper, it's right. But delivery or I don't know what it was, like whatever, who knows?
It's because... So think about Hasta La Vista Baby.
Sure.
Right? Hasta La Vista Baby is like a signal to the audience about the way that the Terminator is processing information and learning about it, and then how the Terminator will utilize that information later on in the film.
But what does this do? It literally does a needle drop.
It does, and it does a pretty poor needle drop.
Yeah.
Right? Like the needle drop happens in the middle of the film as a joke, and then he talks about Depeche Mode a little bit later on, but it is of no relevance to his like entry into humanity or his ability to like love or learn or that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's played as a gag against like, oh, people know Mozart, but I prefer Depeche Mode. It's like, cool, they're both good. What the fuck is? I don't. I'll say a nice thing.
Yeah.
I liked going back into the fake Tron, the old school Tron stuff. I liked that.
Yeah.
I thought that was fun and neat.
I also like Jeff Bridges, who's like become so much more Lebowski than Bridges in these days, and like the more because he's played Flynn 3 times now, and like
each time has been more and more dude.
Yeah. He's just sort of like eventually evolved.
Come on, man.
Biodigital. What is it in Legacy? He says biodigital juice or biodigital jazz is what his line is or something like that. So it's not strange. It's just that it has no weight to it, and that Depeche Mode conversation is like, oh, this could have been really something here if we really like loved Depeche Mode in a way to kind of use it in the film as like a key story beat for this character. That would be cool. I'll tell you what the thing that was actually bad in the movie that I like. This was the point in which I was like, oh, I am not enjoying this.
Okay,
and it is like the last 2 minutes of the movie when. It is the last
when him and Bruce Wayne and every other wayward protagonist ends up at like a coffee shop and rides away on a dirt bike.
It's the exact same thing in like Thunderbolts, where it's like, oh, clearly they filmed this like 3 months later and decided we just need a button on this.
Yeah,
And there is.
Well, I believe the Thunderbolt scene is a scene in Doomsday.
But they shot it like much like
it's a different director. It's a different thing.
It's a whole different thing. And like suddenly it was like a Pantene commercial with Jared Leto and like riding through. Was he in India? I think.
You know what? Who the fuck knows?
There is a tie back to Legacy because I watched Legacy in its entirety like the week before.
There's pictures.
Well, there's pictures of Olivia Wilde's character and Garrett Hedlund's character from the original. And there was an interesting thing there because when I watched it, I was like, oh, because what happens in Legacy is that Flynn talks about the idea that there are these evolved beings within the grid that are beyond his programming. And they are the ISOs, which is what Olivia Wilde is. She is the last ISO, and she enters into the real world and gets to see a sunrise for the, which is actually kind of like a decent ending.
Sure.
And it was like, oh, this version of what's happening in the end of Ares is sort of like the allusion to that. And it was like, but this is so bad. Like, this is such a bad way to like.
This is trying to either Avengerifies it as like even, but more sort of like a Fast and the Furious version of it, but worse than that.
That was genuinely. So in terms of everything, I was like, everything is possible. I'm surprised myself how much I'm like.
I'm surprised you. I thought you were gonna go harder.
No. I was surprised by how much I was like, okay. But then that sequence, I was like, no, sir. I am no, thank you. Please, I want my money back right now at this particular scene. I was like, I do not want this, whatever this is, which is a good Nine Inch Nails song, by the way.
Yeah. No, I had low expectations too.
Yeah,
I did not, to be perfectly honest, I expected to hate it more.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm coming from, which was that my expectation was that this was going to be like bad.
I know. And then, but I find myself disappointed because then I would care.
Yeah.
Like I would have a horse in the race, so to speak, but like I don't. And now, like, look, everyone's talking like Jared Leto is sort of like leading man box office poison and like whatever. Like I think I'm more turned off by Jared Leto due to his extracurricular activities.
No, it's not extracurricular. I mean, we should address this because we've done a whole episode about this. Yeah. But he has been accused of sexual harassment of several people. Yeah. In detail.
And like, but like for instance, look, it's all coming full circle with what we're talking about. We just perfect circle.
Downward Spiral.
Perfect Circle is Tool album. Is a different album based on the Tool. Whatever. He is now going to play a character that is most near and dear to me. He's going to be Skeletor in the new Master of the Universe movie. And I am so upset by that. And look, maybe we'll come back here and he will do such a good job that I will have been reinvigorated separating art from artist. Yeah. But like, I don't know, man.
I will say I watched like a local TV news anchor do like a 5-minute segment about how awful he is. And I was like, oh wow, people really hate this guy.
Like no average viewer is going to bat or excited, it seems, about Jared Leto. There are people, again, that will go see a movie and be like, oh, I recognize that guy. Yeah. And who like, don't follow this shit. Yeah. But like, he's not a draw.
Yeah. And, as far as performance goes, there is nothing being brought to the table here that makes this interesting. Like, and I'm a defender in some ways of his Suicide Squad Joker performance.
I know you are.
In terms of like, I appreciate the swing on that one.
Here's the thing. We can go back to
Terminator. It's a terrible movie.
Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger at that point in his career, and some might say in the entirety of his career, is not a phenomenal actor. But what it did was it took the woodenness of Arnold Schwarzenegger, what he was capable of, and transformed it in, again, skilled director, transformed it into something that was special and effective. Yeah. Essentially, different sort of structures and worlds, but essentially Ares is the character of the Terminator.
It's that and a little bit of RoboCop.
Yeah. And Jared Leto is a somewhat wooden actor. I think Jared Leto's best performance, to be perfectly honest, is in Blade Runner, the new Blade Runner.
He's good
because he plays a creepy, almost cult leader of a business that is kind of abusive. And you're like, I buy all of this.
You know who he replaced in that film?
No.
David Bowie was originally slated to play that part. Yeah. And then David Bowie passed away.
Right.
And Leto came in.
But like, that's my point. Like, I buy him in that because that's kind of his vibe in general.
Yeah. I mean, he did, and he won an Academy Award for Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah.
And I was on the Die Hard on a Blank podcast, and we talked about Panic Room with Leto being both in Panic Room and Fight Club. And again, it's a really good example of like Fincher knowing the strength of who that actor is and where to play them, because in Panic Room, he is like the skeeviest, worst human being. And when his comeuppance happens, you are rooting for it, you know?
And here, like, they just play on the other side of him, which is just like wooden side. But it doesn't, but the story can't support any depth for that wooden performance. It's just a wooden performance because he's a program.
Yeah.
And so like, it's not even that I think he's unskilled. I think he can act fine.
Yeah.
I just think no one likes looking at him that knows anything that what's going on. And those who don't know what's going on aren't still pumped for him.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm super curious how Skeletor is going to be handled. Because again, I know that like, especially even all y'all listening, I don't know how important the Master of the Universe is to any of you. It's really important to me.
Skeletor is very important to you.
Yeah. So like,
and Frank Langella leaves a big footprint to like try and fill.
And listen, Frank Langella, problematic later in his career. Like there's no question about that either. But like Frank Langella, you look at his body of work and like the ability to do all of the different things that he did and do this and elevate essentially a literal cartoon villain into something that has like
Shakespearean qualities to
like
it.
It's insane. He's in a different movie. He's in a different movie than Dolph Lundgren and everyone else in that movie.
100%.
And it's fascinating. I would watch that movie at a drop of a hat. So, but like, I don't want to, I don't want to keep kicking Jared Leto when he's down because I just don't care as much. But I think at first I was like, how did this movie get made? And I was like, oh, 2017. Okay, that makes sense. Like this totally checks out.
He came on board as a producer as well. So
I know. I just think this felt like a holdover. I don't think anyone in Disney marketing was like pumped. I mean, you can see all the posters. There's only 1 out of like 7 that have his face in it.
Right. Yeah.
Because they know.
Yeah.
They're not stupid.
And like again, the amount of like actual outward vitriol from people talking about how he is the problem. And it's so funny to me because I don't think he is the problem. I don't think that he is adding anything to the material here. But the level of dislike for and I think it comes down like to me, I'm not giving advice here, but I feel like, and I think this about every actor really, is you need to find a director who really brings out both the best and worst in you.
Sure.
And like sometimes that means...
Or knows what those are and knows how to use them.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I watched Gone Girl the other night and it was like David Fincher and Ben Affleck. It's just such a perfect pairing, like, and it's the same thing that David Fincher did for Brad Pitt. Like it just understands how the audience perceives this particular person and therefore how
toward it and against it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, I think that's what that needs right now.
And maybe here again with someone who's just doing like these sort of follow-up things for Disney films, like that's just something that like isn't in that director's sort of wheelhouse or interest group or something. Like again, there's different reasons why movies are made.
Yeah, it's hard as well because I think
get it across the finish line.
Get it across the finish line. Joachim Ronin is probably brought in. Like the actual actor has probably more say in the film because the actor is a producer on the film as well. So it becomes a director for hire kind of scenario. And I don't know. It's like the movie is a kind of behemoth in terms of its scale and like what it is trying to do visually. And maybe that's another part of the factor is that like in 1982 when Tron came out, the movie had to move the technology up the hill, and in Legacy, I really felt that they were pushing the edges of what technology was doing at that point.
Yes.
I don't feel that same kind of like, we are moving the needle here.
You said it felt like a behemoth here. And it's interesting because I thought for all of its grandeur, the movie itself felt very small. Like, because like it's the same dark city whenever it's always nighttime in this city.
In Toronto.
There's one scene where it's not, and they're just driving around in like regular time. And then there's one scene in the red grid and one in the blue thing where they're trying to get the access code or something. And like, I thought this movie felt so, and there's always stuff in the Dillinger bunker where they're 3D printing all the shit. And like, I was like, everything feels like it's in 3 locations. And like, I got, now granted, in the city, they're racing down blocks and everything, but every block looks the same. So like, everything felt so small for a movie that's so big.
I guess what I mean by behemoth is that the actual parameters of what it's trying to do are big in terms of like, okay, there is this digital world which we navigate, and it has these like rules about like, what does liquid look like in the digital world? What is like the actual process of like these people being articulated in the digital world, and then that digital world has to then come into the real world, and then like how do those bikes interact with light? So
see, it's so funny. I think they're not like interested in that though. They're interested in the aesthetic of it, but nothing else.
I'm just saying that like this is also, I think we talked about this with Aquaman.
Oh wow!
When we talked about Aquaman, I noted the fact that there is a sequence in Aquaman that rivals the scale of some scenes from Lord of the Rings in terms of like the scale of what's happening here. But we have gotten to a point where that feels coincidental and easy and like and a button push, as opposed to like we need to wheel the technology to do things that it wasn't intended to do. And I think the best way to say this is that like I think I'm going to be besmirching car brands right now.
But
like when Tron Legacy came, like Tron itself felt like they invented the car.
Yep.
Tron Legacy felt like a refinement in terms of like it was a Porsche in terms of like really refined aesthetics and design. This feels like it might be a Kia or a Hyundai.
Like a 2025
Kia or a Hyundai, where it was like, oh man, all this stuff is really cool.
But now it's available to everybody.
But everyone's got it. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. I
would say
why am I not excited by this 2025 Kia?
I would say the Tron Aries is the 2025 Kia of cinema.
Kia, you can sponsor us, by the way.
Yeah. And that's, again, 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been the only podcast about the film Tron Aries.
Yeah.
Shahir, when you are not Excite Bike on your light trike, where can folks find you?
You can find me falling down a downward spiral at my website, suvanova.com. That's SUVANOVA. Matt, when you are getting ready with your purple hoodie and Skeletor outfit for the next time that we talk about a Jared Leto movie, where can people find you?
You can find me looking forward to Skeletor having the longest, most luscious Pantene Pro V locks over at my website. Extra credits and extra history over on the YouTube machine. Also, what else is happening? What's going to be out by the time? By the time this drops, I believe we will have an extra history complete on Rasputin. We're doing some touch-ups on that series, and we're releasing the full one. That'll be really fun. And on credits, there is a episode I really, even if you don't normally watch extra credits, I would really appreciate you watch 2 videos. One came out 2 weeks ago. It is on the systems and game design of escape rooms. Yes. It to be perfectly honest, the video tanked a bit. Yeah. And I think it's one of our best videos we've done in a long time. It's just not a wide audience. I would really like more people to see it. If you've ever gone to an escape room or even wanted, like, even if you're wondering what an escape room is, just watch it. It's so good. We got 2 escape room designers to write it. It's phenomenal. Zach and Christian of Doors of Divergence. And then the next one is a friend of the show, Jasmine, that bronze girl Bular, wrote on how Dark Souls games and Soulsborne titles from Software are actually not these hardcore get good like all this nonsense games, but actually cozy multiplayer experiences.
Okay.
And it is a fascinating look at these games, and it's a angle that I haven't heard about it in a while. That will be out the same day this comes out, if not a week later.
Okay.
Anyway, those are the 2 things I'd like people to check out, because credits, we're doing them monthly again. We fell off for a while as we were revamping history, and now history's in a really good spot. And now we're going back to monthly video game stuff. We have a 19-minute one from a patent lawyer about Nintendo overreaching on their patents lately, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
We're going to have one on comedy in games 10 years from the last time we did a video on that, like how comedy is functioning in games in 2025. And we have one on why difficulty modes are hard. meaning like how different games treat the easy, medium, hard, or what a difficulty setting actually is trying to do.
You know what game came up in conversation with me and a bunch of dads recently? Wondered what the modern equivalent was the Sierra Leisure Suit Larry games.
What's the equivalent of a Leisure Suit Larry today?
Yeah. And I was like,
a lot of the shock games aren't out anymore because the oldest ones or the newest ones I can think of is like Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball, or BMXXX, which was like a something like that. It was so much that like Leisure Suit Larry felt like it was a major conversation point within the sort of Sierra Quest games. Well, because it was trying to, and I say this word lightly, it was adult, right?
Yeah.
But it's not adult. It's very juvenile, but there's like boobs in it.
And I was just like, is there an equivalent to something like that these days?
It's so funny because now, so yes, it's all this hentai nonsense games. Like there's a trillion of them on every digital store. Okay. Like it's literally like, oh, it's a puzzle game, but it's a half naked anime girl. Like it is almost ubiquitous at this point. And there's no cultural movement to it. No, and also Leisure Suit Larry had like narrative and like it had like there was even like series of games, you know, like look, the thing that I really enjoy is both. I'm not a defender of Leisure Suit Larry. I was just like, oh, what has happened to that thing sort of with narrative in it? There's games like Baldur's Gate and Cyberpunk that are actual moving narratives that actually have like an actual point to them, but there's also sex in it. Right. Like, but that's not the point. It's also there. Yeah. So like, I think that's the natural evolution, but there's no real, at least write us in onlymovie.podcast@gmail.com if you know the answer to this, or just tell us what you think about Tron Ares. 5 out of 10. Solid, straight down the middle. Anyway, next it's as you said it, the actual image of the laser bike in the city splitting something directly in half could not be more apt. 5 out of 10. Next week we're gonna be slamming that lightning rod and resurrecting some dead flesh with Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which is I'm reading the book right now just very quickly to try and get up to speed. We are gonna try to release that one, just so you know, guys and gals and non-binary pals. We are going to be trying to get that out a couple days earlier before I was about to say Thanksgiving, before Halloween. We do know that it won't be available on Netflix until November 7th. So I think what we should do anyway, we haven't talked about this, but what we should do is like really do a hardcore like first half of that podcast. What, no spoilers for Frankenstein? For how the movie, what the movie does and how it treats it. The story itself, we all know the story. Talk about, isn't it? Like everyone knows what the story of Frankenstein is. I'm just saying, if there's any fun spoiler or the way it sort of takes it, we should just be careful. Okay, sure. I'm just trying to be polite. Yeah, no, anyway. I have no politeness here. Fine. Well, blame me. Blame me if there's any complaints. Take it up with the manager. You can take it up with the manager. Please give Shahir a 5 out of 10. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.